Well, peace and blessings to you, brothers and sisters. Of course, I'm back with you. This is none other than Melchi Uriel. And I'm not going to be before you long. I just simply want to hop on and kind of just mention some things. You know, there has been, of course, as you know, recent controversy in Israel. There's an issue right now that we're dealing with. And with this issue, we, of course, are... you know, we're praying for everyone involved, but not only that, we're also taking notes. What I want to do is I want to talk about Israel. I want to talk about integrity, and I want to talk about not the incident itself, but I just simply want, listen, you know, there's already been people online. Sonnetter has already done a an expose, right? Really an exposing of those who have gotten caught up in this. Long story short, for those of you that don't know what has happened, long story short, it seems as if the day after Passover, there were some of Israel that were videotaped out in the club, and with, you know, sisters there who were scantimers, supposedly, you know, trying to hit them up, you know, I mean, young men, right? And they were out there being men. And I guess those who saw, they wanted, or perhaps they were expecting them to be holy men. Now, look, there's nothing wrong with Israel being able to rejoice, party, have a good time. There's nothing wrong with Israel enjoying themselves. There's nothing wrong with that. We know that because of our offerings and because of what our Elohim has written in Tanakh, that, yeah, the alcoholic beverages have now a holy place of worship. I don't think that they were in worship place for making merry. There is a place for rejoicing and for having fun, but yet and still conducting yourself seemingly and with integrity. Like I said, I'm not going to be before you long, but let me do this. Let me do this. Let's go into the scriptures, if you will. And I want to mention, I reprimand anyone, not to scold anyone, though I myself, I wouldn't have been caught up like that. I don't agree with it. But hey, we're in a moment right now where we need to heal, right? We need to heal. We need to get over this. We need to learn whatever lessons we need to learn. And we need to move on, okay? We don't need to keep hashing this, reviving this, opening up the wound over and over again, right? This is how division starts. We don't need division, but we need more unity. We need more unity instead of division. So with this in mind, I just want to mention some things by way of integrity to help Israel get through this and to get over this. So let's go to Lamentations. I want to go to Lamentations, the 4th chapter, and of course the 2nd verse right now. And I want to set the stage that is being asked. And in fact, you know what? I also want to include verse number 1. So let's start with Lamentations 4 and verse number 1. And by the way, I've got the chat up, so if you want to chime in and chat, you can go ahead and I will see if you are logging in through YouTube. And I will also, I'm also looking at, let's see here. I'm also looking at YouTube. And I'm trying to see what's going on with YouTube, but let's move on. So, long story short, when we take a look here, notice what it reads. It says, how is the gold become dim? How is the most fine gold changed? The stones of the sanctuary are poured out in the top of every street. Now, why is that significant, and why is that an issue? Because the precious gold of the temple, of the tabernacle, it does not belong in the street. It does not belong in the street. That that is valuable for our Elohim needs to remain valuable. The thing is that we as Israel, not just with these brothers, not just in that particular locality, but overall, I'm saying that we all as brothers all of us as Israel, I'm talking about the sisters too, I'm talking about the entire family of Israel, what we need to do is listen, I'm not saying don't celebrate, I'm not saying don't have fun, but let us do it within the confines of our place where there are holy people that we can have fun with and not worry about such things as looking a certain kind of way in front of those that we're trying to minister to, right? So how is the gold become dim, and how is the fine gold changed? And the stones of the sanctuary are poured out in the top of every street. How is it that that has happened, right? The problem here is that there has been a debasing of that which is valuable, a debasing of that which is, which was holy and should be yet and still holy, but now it's just not being looked on favorably. And we don't want that. So now look at verse number 2. The precious sons of Zion, how applicable is this? The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold, how are they esteemed as earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of the potter? How is it that they now are being looked upon to a lowly degree? Now look, I know there are some who would fight that and say, look, we have nothing to be ashamed about. We have nothing to... Okay, I mean, I get it. And technically, you can go anywhere and do anything that you want to do, okay? But is that expedient? Is that the best thing to do? Is that a good look, right? Does that affect your ministry? Does that affect your integrity? Does that affect your measure? Because now you're going to be looked upon as a different measure of man and a different measure of individual, as opposed to if, of course, like in this particular inference, if the vessels were to be kept in their rightful place in the sanctuary. Moving along, Isaiah 29:13. Wherefore, Yahuwah said, for as much as this people draw near unto me with their mouth, they're saying the right things, right? And with their lips they do honor me. So they're honoring me with their lips, but have removed their heart far from me. And their fear toward me is taught by the precepts of men. So rather than this being a demonstration, of holiness and a demonstration of reverence and fear, it is basically only in precept, and it's only in words, it's only in precept, but it's not being demonstrated. So what does that say to us, Israel? That says that this is a lack of integrity. Now, what this does is it gives us room to improve. It gives us room to move forward. It gives us room to understand, you know what, we are special. We're not just ordinary individuals. We are individuals who carry weight in Israel. Little boys and our sons are looking up to us, and other individuals are looking up to us. There are people that know you, especially if you're out there in the streets. There are people that know you, that see you, and they want to respect you, and they have you up on a high pedestal. And so it's important that we maintain our integrity. Listen, it's not about them. It's about obeying Yahweh our Elohim. But at the same time, we minister unto others, and they need to see that we're correct. They need to see that we're true, right? So they need to see that. They need to understand that. And so we want to keep that. We want to keep that always before us, that our hearts can be in a place where our mouth is not, and we can say one thing with our mouth, but yet and still our heart betrays us, and we end up demonstrating what's in our heart that ends up making us look a different way, and of course it's not a good look for us. Believe it or not, I'm almost done. So I want to show you something here. What happens? What happens? Listen, I'll say this real quick. I remember giving lessons to my children and to others, and I told them, I said, some things you only get one chance at. Some things you only get one chance. It's difficult to undo that impression. So where there is integrity, where there is peace, where there is truth, hey, we don't have to worry about it. It's all good. We just need to maintain that, and we need to keep it moving. Now, again, I'm trying to bring healing. This is a note for Israel, right? And I just want to say, hey, when something is lost, it can be difficult to regain it. it can be very difficult to regain it. Look at this scripture. This is, of course, as I mentioned before, this is Genesis, I'm sorry, I don't know if I mentioned this, but this is Genesis 49 and 4. And I want to, once again, I want to focus on 4, but let's set the stage. Let's take a look here. Let's take a look here. Because we're talking about, in fact, let me do this. Let me do this. Now, this is, of course, Jacob talking, right? This is Yaakov talking, and notice what he says. 49, Genesis 49, verse 1. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves, and hear ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. And notice what he says here, verse 3. Reuben. He says, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellence of power. That is what was in Reuben. His might, the beginning of his strength, and the excellency of his dignity, and the excellence of his power. That's what Reuben was. He had all that going for him, right? But notice what it says. It talks about now, about his character. He had all of that. He had that potential. But notice what it reads. Unstable as water. Now, water can also be a metaphor for emotions and feelings, right? It's, you know, and I don't want to get into the symbolism behind water, but a lot of times our feelings and our emotions can lead us astray, again, because our heart is not where it should be, and so we're easily led astray. And what does that do? It takes that which is of might and that which is of strength, and just look at what it reads here. It takes that is of might and of strength and of excellency, right? And it puts it all in jeopardy, right? A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And when your character is weak, when your character, we suffer. And everybody suffers. Unstable as water. Jacob said, Reuben, you ain't going to excel. You're not going to excel. Because you went up to your father's bed. You defiled it. Right? And you went up to your father's couch. You went up to my couch. You did something that you were not supposed to do because you lacked integrity. You had the can't help it. You wanted what you wanted. You were thinking about how it would feel, whatever. No matter what you were thinking, you went ahead and you disobeyed. And now you're going to have to pay the price. Right? Now you're going to have to pay the price. Now, what I want you to understand is, and what I want to review for you, is Egypt. They are in Mitzrayim, and they haven't even begun to multiply like they're going to multiply. And they have not been afflicted like they're going to be afflicted. And they're not even set free yet, like they're going to be set free. Hundreds of years have to pass. Okay? Hundreds of years have to pass. I really want to drive that home because we're about to take a look at what happens even after those hundreds of years have passed, right? And the integrity of a group within Israel has been broken. What happens even after hundreds of years, right? Let's take a look at that, and let's take a look at Scripture. Notice what it reads. It says, look, you're unstable, right? And so then hundreds of years later, now we come to Moshe in Deuteronomy 33. Now, listen, hundreds of years have passed, right? All should be forgotten, right? No. Look at what it reads in chapter 33 of Deuteronomy. And this is the blessing wherewith Moses, the man of God, rose up from Seir unto them. He shineth forth from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000 of saints from his right hand, when a fiery law for them. Yea, he loved. It says, he came unto them, and he loved the people, all his saints, right? All his saints are in thy hand, and they sat down at thy feet. Every one shall receive of thy words, right? And notice what it says in verse 4. Moshe commanded us a law, even the inheritance of the congregation of Yaakov, and he was king together. And so this is Moshe blessing the children of Israel, right? Blessing Israel. Notice this is hundreds of years later. What does Reuben receive? All he says to Reuben is, let Reuben live and not die, and let not his men be few. Now compare that to the blessing of Judah, right? And this is the blessing of Judah. And he said, hear, O Lord, the voice of Judah, and bring him unto his people. Let his hands be sufficient for him, and be thou an help to him from his enemies. And he goes on and he blesses Levi. But wait a minute. What did Reuben get? Let him live and not die, and let his men be not few. I mean, those are meagerly crumbs when you consider that the firstborn is supposed to get. The firstborn is really supposed to get a double portion of the blessing. But Reuben, because his character, listen, he had potential, but his character was broken down the road. This was hundreds of years down the road. Now, let me pause right here and say this. In fact, you know what? Let me go to the next verse of scripture, okay? Because this is my last one. I want to read this to you. This is coming from 1 Chronicles 5:1. And notice what it reads. It says, now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, right? And he only has that in title, for look at what it reads. It says, for he was the firstborn, but for as much as he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given unto the sons of Joseph, the son of Israel, and the genealogy is not to be reckoned after the birthright. It is sad. It is sad. Reuben's mistake cost him his blessing. Reuben's mistake cost him his blessing and his reputation. It cost him dearly. And because he messed up, Yah was not allowing him to ever receive what he once had. Now, that being the case, remember, if you will, remember Shaul. Remember Shaul, because Shaul was first king of Israel. But guess what happened? I mean, the kingdom was ripped from him, and Shmuel, the prophet, had to tell him, look, the kingdom is torn away from you. And he said, it's given to someone else who is better than you. So what does that tell you? That tells you that someone was better, but even though someone was better, Yah did not give unto them the blessing and the position. He didn't give it to the one that was better. He gave it to the one that he wanted to give it to. He gave it to the one that he chose. But only when the one that he chose messed up did he give it to someone that was better, right? Why? Because when he chose them, and the character of the individual is what had to be intact. And once the character was broken, then Yah had to consider someone better. So I want to say that, there's many people who say, well, there's no such thing as the children of Israel. They didn't really exist. Moses didn't really exist. Listen, from a hermeneutical standpoint, this would be called an argument of embarrassment. Because normally when individuals like the Roman government and the Roman auspices who were involved in creating the New Testament, and if you notice, they come out smelling like roses, right? So if there was something that was embarrassing about the Romans in the New Testament, you could say, well, okay, yeah, that rings true. But because the Gospels, and I know I'm taking a side point, but I'm proving a point, because the Gospels themselves do not mention the occupation and the rape and the abuse of Israel at the hands of Rome, it becomes a smoking gun. It's makes it very suspect, right? Again, I style it to writing about New York City in, the first 5 years of, from 2000 to 2005, and never mentioning the Twin Towers, right? That's like, someone doing a history of Vietnam, but never talking about the Vietnam War. And so you can tell who's manipulating the context and who's controlling the narrative, right? By what you don't find. So things like this are valuable. When you look at what Reuben did, and when you look at the long trail of bile that it left, I mean, it is embarrassing, it's hurtful, it's harmful, and it's something that it hurts, right? But it serves as the argument of embarrassment. Okay, because if someone was trying to make themselves look good, they would not include that. They definitely would not include that. So in this, Reuben gets replaced by the sons of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. That's sad. That's sad, especially when he is noted to have been one that was, might and excellency of dignity and so forth and so on. It is nothing less than sad. On this note, I want to say that it's important for us to stand in integrity, right? And I pray mercy upon all those who are caught up in this particular issue. That's all. And I